Welcome back. So in the last video, we made a little bit of a mess of things by adding in the seeds file, and that was the point. We wanted to add in some code that would seed the database both with campgrounds and comments, even though comments don't work, so we get some error messages. Now we're going to focus on going and making the comment model and making those errors go away. So the two main objectives are to make the errors go away by creating the comments file, adding in the correct model code, and then also displaying the comments that are associated with a given campground on that campground show page. So if I click here, my server's not started, but if I did, I would want to see the show page that has the details about the campground and the associated comments. Okay, so let's get started. Let's just refresh your memory on what happens when I run the server. I get an error now telling me cannot find module models/comment. So we need to make that file. Touch models/comment.js, and then we're going to open that up just like that. And then inside of here, we know that at some point at the bottom, we're going to have module.exports equals something. And up top, we're going to import mongoose. So var mongoose equals require mongoose, just like that. And then what we'll need to do is create our schema. So a comment has two things: text, which we've seen already here. We decided text and author. Eventually, author will be a reference to a user model once we have user authentication. For now, it's just a string with the name of the author. So text and author, both of which are strings. So we're going to create the schema, var comment schema, and we don't need to uppercase that, equals, and then this is mongoose.schema. And then inside of here, we're going to have text, which is a string. And then we're also going to have author, which is also a string. So that makes us the schema. And then we need to compile that to the model, which we do with mongoose.model and the singular name of our model, which is comment, and then the schema, which is comment schema. And that's what we're going to export. So that's all we should need to do to make the comment model, which we're then exporting out, and we're using inside our seeds.js file. We're requiring it right here. So if all things go well, we should have a different error message now. Let's clear and try running our app again. And it looks like it worked just fine. And it did create the campgrounds for us, and we can view a show page. But if we look at the data that's stored in the database, or if we just look at our models, we don't actually have any associated data. So let me show you. I'll open up Mongo, and the database that I'm using is YelpCamp version 3. So I'm going to use YelpCamp v3, and then I'm going to show the collections, and we'll see what we have here. So we have two collections, campgrounds and comments. And if I look at the campgrounds, so let's do db.campgrounds.find everything. You can see that we have 3 campgrounds, but all that we're getting is the campground ID, the name, and the image, and there's nothing about comments. And if we do the same thing for comments, db.comments.find all, you'll see that we have text and author, but we have nothing about campground. So we're part of the way there. Now we need to work on the association. So I'll Control-C out of there. And what we want to do is associate a comment with the campground. And we'll do that by adding a object ID reference to the campground schema. So if we look at seeds, the way that I wrote it is that we should be able to do campground.comments. And that doesn't exist yet, so we need to add the comments property to campground. So let's open up the campground.js file and add a property here called comments. And it's going to be an array, and it's going to be an array just like we did with users and posts, where we had an object inside, and that object had type, which was mongoose.schema.type.objectId, just like that, comma, and then it had a ref, and this is going to be comment. That's the name of the model. So what we're saying is that the comments property should be an array of comment IDs. So we're not embedding the actual comments in here. We're just embedding an ID or a reference to the comments. So we'll save now. And if we try and see the database again with node app.js, we now have a small issue, which is a syntax error we need to have types.objectID. So now if we run this again, it tells us that it removed all campgrounds, added a campground, added a campground, added a campground, created a new comment, and then created a new comment. Let's see what we're looking at. Refresh the page. This should look the same. Now let's dive into Mongo and let's use YelpCamp v3, and then we'll do db.campgrounds.find. And if we make this a little bigger, you can see that we have a comments object now, or comments property, where each one has a single comment. And it's the same comment on all of them. Although the IDs are different, it's the same text and author, but it's technically a different entity because we created 3 different comments that just have the same content. All right, so we have the association done. That's all we need to do. We can make a new comment and we can associate it with a campground by adding it to the comments array on each campground. What we want to do next is focus on displaying the comments. So we're going to do that on the show route. So we'll go back to app.js and we can close out of our seeds file for now and our comment and our campground, and we're just going to focus on this app.js. So I'm going to get rid of all of this now. That was sort of our old seed data. And then I'm going to make some room in here and go down to our show route. So inside of show, we're finding the right campground with the ID, but if we look at the campground that's coming back, remember that it looks like this, where we have comments, but comments will be an array with object IDs in it. And if we want the actual comments, which we do, we want to pass the comments to the show template, we need to use that .populate.exec. So we can refactor this just a little bit. We're going to do find by ID, and we're going to close that off right there. And then we're going to do a .populate comments, and then a .exec, and we pass this callback function into .exec. I think this part's always a little bit jarring to students, but we're finding a campground still, find by ID, and then we're populating the comments on that campground. And then with .exec, we're actually executing this query that we made. And then that comes back, and we still have the found campground, but it should look different because inside of found campground should now be comments, not just IDs, but actual comments. And we can prove that by printing it out before we render the template. So found campground, console.log that. And let's see what happens now. I start the server. And the only way I'm going to see this is if I go to a show route. So let's go to Canyon Floor. And it doesn't look like anything has changed because we're not displaying anything. But if we go and look in the console where we're printing out found campground, you can see that we've now populated the comments array. So inside the comments array, there's a single comment by Homer that says, "This place is great, but I wish there was internet." Now all we have left to do is use the comments array in the template. We're already passing in the entire found campground, so we can just access campground.comments inside the show template, and we'll do that now. We'll open up that template. So that's C9 views/show, and we'll start by just at the very bottom doing a loop, and we're going to loop through all the comments. So we'll do a for each, and that's on campground.comments. Remember that campground refers to this whole thing. So campground.comments.for each, and we'll have function, and in here we'll just call it comment. Open that up, and then add our EJS closing bracket, and do the same thing down here. No equal sign, remember that. And then we'll just make a simple paragraph for each comment to start. We will be styling this later. So a paragraph, and it's just going to have the comment.author first, just like that, dash, the comment.text. And we need equal signs on both of those. And let's make the author bolded. So I'll put a strong tag around the author, and let's indent to make this a little easier to see what's happening. So a strong tag, and then we'll put the author inside the strong tag, just like that. And then we'll have a dash, the comment.text, just like that. All right, so this will loop through all the comments on a given campground on the show page, and it's going to make a paragraph for each one. And inside that paragraph, we're going to print out the comments author bolded, and then a dash, the comments text. So let's see if that works for us. Let's go ahead and stop the server, or restart the server. now visit a show page. Let's go back, refresh. Let's do Desert Mesa. And there we go. We have our first comment down here. We only have one comment on each campground for now. Soon we'll have more once we add in the ability to add a new comment. So right here, there will be a button that we're going to add in the next video that says add comment. And we click that, it will take us to a form, and then we can add a new comment and then come back to this page and see our new comment showing up. Okay, so that's all we needed to do in this video. We accomplished a lot. Let's take a moment to go back and review everything that we did, or the important parts at least. So we created the comment.js file, we added in our comment schema, and we created the model. And then we changed the campground a little bit so that the schema now has comments. And comments is an array, not of entire comments, but of the comment object IDs. And then we have our seeds file that's still running just fine at the very top here. And stylistically, it would make a little bit more sense for us to move this down. So I'm going to cut this out and just move it after we've done the configuration. But it really doesn't matter. So we're seeding the database. That's adding in 3 different campgrounds, each one with a comment by Homer. And then what we're doing is when we visit a show route, which we have here, we're retrieving the campground, the one campground with the right ID, and then populating the comments array on it, which is going to fill in this data here so that it's not just an ID. And then we're able to send that to the template. And then in the template, we're using it, we're looping through it, and we're displaying a paragraph for each comment. Okay, so as I mentioned in the next video, we're going to focus on making the new comment functionality.